So,
You might just want to get Mindslaver here. I mean,
all right, so it
that's
looks like the
usually
match
right. Here we
is
go.
pending, about to start here, imminent, as they say.
All right.
So, like I said, we don't have hand cams, but you know,
So it looks like Gerard is going first.
and David Williams in the chat, of course, saying that Dak fading is a real problem for Tinker.
Yeah, Dak Faden is such a problem that you see Arcbound, Ravager, and Sword of Fire and Ice being played.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. A lot of hate has come out from Knightsfield, like just the metamorphs. I remember in season 1 of VSL, I think Josh Utterlayton cast tinkered out a Blightsteel against me, and I just made 2 Blightsteels on my turn, I think.
That's awesome.
The card has problems.
Yeah, and Dak Faden's powerful, and I think part of why this Ravager-based workshop strategy is a strategy is because of Dak Faden.
Yeah, that's actually pretty sweet. All right, so Black Lotus. So
Gerard has a Black Lotus. That's a powerful way to start your game of Magic.
Gerard has 2 Jace the Mind Sculptor in his deck. So this could be huge.
Well, if he has one now, that's a good start. That's something that a lot of vintage players call the Kohler, in honor of Justin Kohler, who made that play famous.
Gerard also has the Notion Thief in his deck, which has been extremely powerful in VSL so far.
That might not be ideal against this particular matchup.
Absolutely not. I'm just looking through all the spicy stuff he has in his deck, trying to figure out what he can throw out here. Obviously, that's not a great turn one play in this matchup.
Well, if he has a mana drain,
against Storm,
then it could be really good.
So I'm sure if he had Jace, it would already be in play.
That's true. So now I think mana drain is the most exciting thing he could have. He could drain a turn one Lodestone Golem right into a Mindslayer.
Yeah.
Oh man, there's a great counter to Black Lotus right there, or Exian Revoker.
Oh, that is annoying. Gerard does not have any. He doesn't. I'm wrong. He has 2 Dismembers in his deck. So he actually does have outs that don't involve.
There's that mana drain.
Yeah.
So if you don't have mana drain, you get into this interesting Skyla and Charybdis scenario with your Black Lotus, where if you play it, you can get Revokered. But if you don't play it, Chalice is restricted, but it can still get shut out by Sphere effects.
With mana drain in his hand, I'm sure he felt he had to cast it, and then he kind of got punished, obviously, by the worst mana drain target. Like I said, he has 2 Dismembers in his deck. If he had one in his hand, I'm sure he would not have used his Lotus Stone.
Right. It does put him in this sort of use it or lose it scenario. And he didn't do anything with 3 mana of any color last turn, so we'll see what he does with 2 colorless mana this turn.
Well, he has Time Vault Key in his deck, Soul Ring.
If he has all 3 of those in his hand, then see, it's more exciting without the hand cams. We don't know what's going to happen. It could be anything. It could be a pirate ship. I don't think that's actually in his deck.
Time Walk.
That's probably not the most exciting thing if he doesn't have a land to follow it up with.
No.
Oh, it appears that he's digging for a land.
Oh boy. Oh boy. So now I'm glad we don't have the hand game. I don't want to see it if he gets crazy. It's too sad.
So Brainstorm is draw 3, put 2 cards back. There's this exciting phenomenon in Vintage called getting Brainstorm locked. That's where you draw 3 cards, you don't have anything that you can do, you put 2 cards back, and then you hope that nothing bad happens to you for the next 2 turns. So this is where, if Gerard doesn't have anything, and it appears that he might not, it's pretty bad for him. He's gone to his second main phase. Could be bluffing mana drain by doing this.
It's funny, and
nothing.
He could be locked. He could be out of this game basically with no lands.
Yeah, he might just be spending the next few turns drawing 6 drops and wishing that he had more mana.
It's funny, in Legacy, although he's not being punished here, hanger back for 1 is about as slow as a clock as possible. Except that he didn't hanger back for 2, so that means Ravage. Oh, Thorn. Okay.
Thorn is pretty powerful here. Thorn takes Gerard from having 1 mana to having no mana available. Now Ashiok costs 4.
It's funny, in Legacy, where you get to play with 4 Brainstorm, I feel like people are very reluctant to just kind of fire off a Brainstorm at random times without a fetch land. And obviously here, Gerard just wanted a land drop. But I feel like in Vintage, you feel more pressure to just, even if you don't have a fetch land, you're just like, well, I just have to Brainstorm because between my opponent really doing something crazy on his turn versus me having, Ancestral Recall on top of my deck or something, I just have to use it immediately.
Absolutely. I think in Legacy, except against a small subset of the decks, you can pass through the turn and be fairly confident that if your opponent doesn't have a bunch of scary things on the table, you'll enjoy a bonus turn. In Vintage, you might not. Even against Workshops, a card like Trinisphere could just completely lock Gerard out of the game.
So Gerard Force-Willed the Sphere, or the Thorn, and he played a land. So does that mean he did play a land last turn to play around?
It does. It means that he had access to a land and opted not to play it. So maybe he has a 2-drop, and he wanted to be able to play the 2-drop without getting wasted.
Right, which is reasonable. Like if he had Mana Drain here, he might have said, I'm not going to play this land unless I at least can Mana Drain with it. Right. But of course, if he has the Wasteland, he has Dig. There you go. Perfect.
So that's a good play on his part.
Very good play.
If you played the Underground Seed last turn, it means that it would have gotten wasted, or at least could have gotten wasted. Now, even though it's getting wasted, he can Dig Through Time, which is not only a good card by itself, but it means that he's no longer Brainstorm locked. He's going to be getting rid of the worst card in his hand.
Right. With only one, with Dig being restricted now, that wasn't obvious that was going to happen.
Right, right. So this is Gerard playing well to make the best of a fairly bad scenario.
Now, there's no lock piece in play. It's the Hangerback Walker, which is more of a, until Ravager is in play, Hangerback Walker is like a standard level power creature.
I think he is played in that format. I wouldn't really know, but that's been my understanding.
I don't even, if the card Arcbound Ravager did not exist, Hangerback, I've seen people dabble with it in Modern, and I'm not a real fan, but obviously in some matchups it's reasonable. Yeah. But, when it's just in this situation, it's just not a very fast clock, and most Vintage decks are not going to give you enough time to dirt around and make a bunch of 1/1s.
Hangerback Walker, he does a couple things really well. He's really good against sweeper effects like Pulverize. He's really, really good with Arcbound Ravager. He's not so good on his own. On the other hand, to make the curve in this deck work, you really want a 2-drop. So you end up with Hangerback Walker edging out Porcelain Legionnaire.
Right. Well, I think it's just the Ravager interaction that can, especially in the mirror.
Oh, really, yes, I agree. That pushes him over the top. But I really do wish this build had a slightly better 2-drop to replace him with.
Yeah, and it's funny that even against, let's say against young Pyromancer decks, the fact that you don't have a way without Ravager to kill your own Hangerback, it's still really not that good of a defender because it's just too easy for them to kind of wait until they have 8 1/1s in play before they even attack.
I think for one Vintage Daily at least, I actually ran a Phyrexian Tower in my main deck. That's a land that lets you tap and sacrifice a creature for 2 black mana. And I didn't do this because I thought it was good. I did this because I just really wanted to be able to get rid of my my Hangerback Walkers. And it's
I think that's totally
Diamond Valley.
And when I played what's the name of the All Lands Workshop deck I was playing last? Terra Nova. In Season 1. You always had 2 or 3 colorless lands that you could kind of play whichever one you wanted. Yeah. So Gerard's getting beat down slowly, but he might just be able to. This is. And obviously, he could just draw Voltaic Key and win here.
I think he had 1 card in hand. Now he's going to 2.
So this is the weakness of the the new shop decks. If you don't build your deck around just infinite lock pieces, you can get this draw where
it's very hard to stop this draw, right? I mean, Gerard slipped through a 2-mana artifact, which wouldn't have been increased in cost by Lodestone Golem, and now he just needs to slip through a 1-drop. And
but if he had he doesn't have spheres in his deck, right? So
no, there's he doesn't have any spheres of
I think
resistance.
he just has thorns.
Let me take a look at his list. Yeah, you're right. He doesn't. Revoker would be good, and that would take care of it.
Yeah. Well, his clock is quite fast now, though. So
there it is. Yes. So he's going to win next turn with. I was going to call him his trash can with arms, but I don't think that art is available on Magic the Gathering Online, unfortunately.
Oh, really? All we have is this thing?
Unfortunately, yes. Now, of course, the correct picture of Triskelion is a cartoonish-looking trash can with arms.
They're all correct, Rich.
Yeah, for some definition of correct.
Illegal in 93, 94 Magic, or whatever. What is the version of it? What do people actually call that format?
Oh, I don't know. I don't play that. I heard they restricted mana drain in that. Can you believe that?
I can believe it. I guess they they want people to not only play mana drain.
Well, I played Magic back then. I get to play with a bunch of mana drains. It was awesome.
Yeah, you know how good mana drain was when all the 1 casting cost cards were terrible.
Yeah,
decks weren't good enough to have
bad. I remember those days.
I mean, you had Swords of Plowshares and Lightning Bolt, but all right. So we don't have sideboard cams, but obviously we can talk about what they're going to do here.
All right. So I'm looking at Dave's sideboard here. We have some Dismembers, which do kill Tasker, but I don't think will be worth it. Wormcoil Engine and Duplicant. I'm not sure those are good. He's Witchbane Orb and Crucible of Worlds and Grafdigger's Cage. You know, he might just not sideboard here.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that. I don't think it's crazy to. Yeah, he might not sideboard. He could bring in Crucible for some card he decides is not that great.
It's tough. So do you?
He doesn't have. He can't play Null Rod, so.
If you bring in Wormcoil Engine, you're just going to lose to Ashiok. So I don't think you do that.
Gerard has 3 Ingot Chewer, a Rakdos Charm.
Ashiok targets, right? So Witchbane Orb is actually an answer to Ashiok.
That's true.
All right. I think that might be the way to go then.
Gerard has Ingot Chewer's Rakdos Charm. He has an extra land, a plateau. That is not something you see in Vintage. Plateau.
No, it's not.
He has a Wear Tear, so he has quite a bit of artifact removal. What do you think about the Needle? Do you bring in Needle in this matchup?
I like Needle. All of his lands are non-basic, so you can. Needle actually does a lot. It stops Arcbound Ravager and it stops Wastelands from chewing up your land. It stops the Sword of Fire and Ice or the Jide or the Triskelion. So actually, I like Needle in this matchup. I'd bring it in.
Needle seems good. So Gerard has quite a bit to bring in, and obviously he can take out. He'll probably take out Snapcaster Mages, Notion Thief, Thoughtseize. I don't know what he'll do about. Probably, I'm sure he'll take out Toxic Deluge. What do you think about should Yawgmoth's Will in this matchup?
I actually don't like Yawgmoth's Will in this matchup. I don't think it's good.
Even though it's less of a lock-based deck?
I think if you have any log piece facing you, then paying 4 mana to cast your spells at 1 bonus mana becomes more difficult. It's good if you've cleared away all of your opponent's lock pieces, but you're often in good shape if you do that. So I would not be as inclined to leave that in.
Yeah, I mean, that's how I've always felt as well. I was just wondering if we feel like there's short enough on lock pieces now where we feel okay about it, but probably not.
I think that's greedier than I'd care to be, but given this mana confluent field mana base, Gerard might disagree.
So here's what I think is the big question where we could see some real fanciness from Gerard.
All
What
right.
creature type is Arcbound Ravager? Because Gerard has Engineered Plague in his set.
Tragically, horribly, Wizards, in one of their possibly their greatest mistake, opted to make it a beast instead of an ATOG. Now, if you ask me, when Wizards did their great creature type conversion, it should have been an ATOG. It's a 2-mana creature that loves eating artifacts.
Make a good argument.
Sadly, it's a beast.
Well, an Engineered Plague beast would not surprise me that much.
It would stop it. All right, so once again, Gerard starts with a Time Walk.
Well, if he plays a land here, no, that's right. This is already huge against Workshops.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, this is just not what Workshop wants to see. Although, this is the kind of game where you're happy you have fewer lock pieces in your deck because maybe you get some aggro draw.
Right. So now David has a Wasteland. That's pretty key there because Tolarian Academy taps for absurd amounts of mana. I mean, in this case, it taps for 1, but that's still enough where Gerard could slam down that Ashiok if he draws Ashiok.
So what do you think Ochoa is thinking about here?
I guess he kept a hand where he needs that for mana.
Oh, he's wastelanding on upkeep.
On upkeep. I don't understand that. That gives Gerard more theoretical mana.
I'm not sure what that does. Here's the mana confluence.
There it is. It's a slightly better City of Brass. It's
I feel like I'd rather play City of Brass, though. That thing's hideous.
City of Brass is an awesome card. It's better against Tangle Wire.
Yes. And so I guess I was about to say, does anybody play a card that makes it matter? And then literally Ochoa has him in his deck.
Yes. 4 Tangle Wires.
Yeah.
Right. So Gerard mana drained a Sphere.
Oh, here we go. This could be. He could do anything now. I mean, his deck is
and leave his graveyard completely intact.
Yeah, any of the huge stuff in his deck could happen now.
All right, so now it's literally anything in his deck.
So this is where you wish you had that Blightsteel, I guess.
That's true. I still like Tinker here. I
Mindslaver
think Wormcoil is probably still a fine card to get.
There's no Metamorphs in Ochoa's deck, is that correct?
No Metamorphs.
Is he just
can't really
Jace?
do much about a Wormcoil engine.
No, he is getting Tinker. I don't know. He could just go Mishra's Workshop Wormcoil engine.
He could, in theory, he could. But
it's not like there's no counter to Wormcoil engine.
That's true. There's an interesting card, Metalworker. So, from the people who brought you Tinker, Metalworker taps for 2 colorless mana for every artifact in your hand that you care to reveal.
Ancestral Recall, that is...
That's a quality Magic card.
I wonder if he already had the Wormcoil and he Demonic Tutored for Ancestral.
That's possible.
Oh, no, I mean, he already had the Tinker.
The Tinker, yeah.
Oh, no, because he still had a mana left. So, no, he did get the Tinker instead of the Ancestral. Yeah, I don't know. I would almost, if all I'm getting is Wormcoil engine, I'm almost tempted to just get Ancestral instead.
I like Dak better than Ancestral there. I think I'd rather have Dak than Ancestral.
Than Wormcoil or Ancestral?
Than Ancestral. I think I would have gone for Tinker Wormcoil, but if I already had Tinker in hand, I would have, or he just has everything. That's also
just has it all.
Yeah. So I have no idea which of these cards he tutored for and which of them he just sort of had. But if you're watching someone play and he's casting 3 cards, any of which he could have demonic tutored for, he probably has a pretty solid draw.
That's true. That helps.
I think this one's almost certainly over.
Well, at least he's got Dak covered.
That's true. This
seems pretty bad for Ochoa after sideboarding. Gerard has quite a bit of artifact destruction.
That's true. In fact, For all we know, Gerard could go to his turn, tap Metalworker, and cast Mindslaver.
Now, why did he not just cast that? That would have been sweet.
It would have been. I don't know. Maybe he has other important things to do with his mana, like cast Ashiok. Or he'll try to draw into Ashiok using Dak.
I'm not even sure I like Wormcoil Engine more than Jace the Mind Sculptor. I guess you could get hurt by Mishra's Factories, but...
You can also get more shut off by Revoker. Oh man, it's happening. I hope this is a mind. He revealed Mindslaver. He revealed Mindslaver. Here we go.
Rich, you really love Mindslaver, don't you?
I've played a lot of Mindslaver in Vintage. A lot of Mindslaver. I've won a lot of tournaments with Mindslaver. So I'm a big fan of the card. I've played it here in the Vintage Super League. Also, I've never passed it in draft.
that could be a hole in your game.
I've had teammates hate draft it from me in team drafts.
So I did not play much. I did not really play during the Control Slaver era. So I've not done much Mind Slavering in my time.
Control Slaver was one of my favorite eras in Vintage. The 2004 Vintage era was a lot of fun. I guess it was Type 1 back then. But it was a really good time.
So all my Mind Slavering has been in Cube Draft, and I even took it out of my Cube because it...
You took it out of your Cube?
Well, it just seemed like it only got played in Academy Ruins decks. And...
It was also in two really, really good draft formats. I think A Ridge and Return to Mirrodin were both pretty fun to draft. And, Mindslaver there was pretty awesome. Yes. All right, so now it's Dave's turn to open on 3 mana.
Oh, boy.
Trinisphere.
Wow, first turn Trinisphere.
Wow. Oh, and
the Force of Will!
Wow.
So, interesting that Gerard still has Snapcaster Mage in his deck after sideboarding, which I don't really get.
No. I would have cut them too, but...
although I guess the fact that you can just...
Wow. So, Ochoa started with probably the most potent thing that a workshop deck can do on the first turn, which is deploy a first turn Trinisphere. Gerard not only countered that, but came back with engineered explosives. Now, David has Lodestone Golem.
That is a good counter to the explosives.
Absolutely. This is some good vintage right here. So it's interesting to note that not only does Ochoa have a lock piece, but he has 9 power on the table on his second turn.
Yeah, if you have Ingature, you have to take a hit to kill those Moxes.
It looks like that's what Gerard's doing.
It's a huge wasteland risk, though, if you don't have another red mana.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I guess he's just hoping that Ochoa starts throwing down high-quality workshop components.
Yeah. Force of Will is huge. Just huge.
It really is.
I have long been advocating for Vintage some sort of Force of Will that only is a pitch card versus artifacts and enchantments.
Force of Annul?
So yeah, basically it's cancel, but a free annul or something. Man, this deck has Badlands and Plateau.
That land is sure of bad lands, yes.
That's incredible.
So, if Gerard had Pulverize, that would be pretty cool. I know Randy sure got me with that card in the prior season. But here's Big League Chew doing his best. So, Big League Chew is going to try to eat Lodestone. Ravager will eat Lodestone. Tell me this Ravager shouldn't have been an ATOG. What's more ATOG-ian than that?
Oh, you're right. It's hard to disagree with that.
Wow.
There we go.
2 for the price of 3.
Pretty
But
good.
the job.
It's not just like that's what I said. Do you blow up the boxes before you use ingot chewers? And
Yeah.
I was right. I think it was worth it.
Yeah, it certainly looks like it. Gerard's played this. He's played this well.
Yeah. Gerard is. I mean, we can't see his hand, but he's. When we've been able to kind of guess what his decision process was, it seems like they've been very good. One great thing about this version of workshops compared to some of the more lock-based ones is it's much less likely to sort of lock itself out of the game if something goes wrong. Some of the older workshop decks, if your opponent suddenly drew 2 wastelands that you weren't expecting, you could just lock. You could you might never cast another spell.
That's absolutely true. One nice feature of Archon Ravager is that he can clear any of your lock pieces that you want, and there have been games where I've needed to say clear away my own Tangle Wire on my opponent's end step with him. So this is where David's probably wondering if Gerard has something unfortunate that's going to happen to his Mishra's Factories if he attacks.
It's not. I mean, he has Dismembers and Wear Tear. He doesn't have a ton of instance besides that. I believe Rakdos Charm, Wear Tear.
Only 4?
You could have Snapcaster Mage, which doesn't have anything to get back, but it could. Well, it can't even but could ambush one.
It'll just have to be an Ambush Viper, right?
But yeah, I think it's just a 4 instance.
That's actually pretty interesting then. So,
but maybe he's trying to decide if he should attack or cast something. Because
now, on the other hand, if Gerard doesn't have any removal spell, but he does have a mana drain, then it behooves David to just start crashing in with Mishras.
I mean, how many cards does Gerard has? 2 cards?
5 cards, right? It's 5?
2. No, they both have 2. I would be tempted to just attack with my Mishra's Factories here. I think that
2 cards makes it a lot safer than 5, right?
I mean, maybe he's holding a Lodestone Golem or something. I just don't know. Especially when Gerard has all this sorcery speed stuff in his deck.
And it looks like Gerard didn't do anything. So this could be Gerard's last turn. If David draws another Mishra's Factory here, then it's all over.
Yeah, now he could have hardcast Force of Will, so you can't cast a spell now.
Wow.
And this is going to shut off fetch lands, which could matter for the deck with a lot of 6-drops.
They could. Also, by not deploying a Lodestone Golem, David's playing around Dakfaden.
Oh, right. That's another thing. Right? That's a very good point. But although I feel like Gerard would have cast it last turn, for sure.
Would he have? I guess he would have played it. I guess he would have bought him a turn. It would have been a fog.
I mean, he has to just cycle through his deck, right? I mean,
right.
Rather than die.
Sometimes fog is pretty good.
But it's looking like he has nothing. Jason Mind Sculptor does not help him here. Hardcast Ingot Chewer does not save him. Although
Ashiok won't get out of this.
Last turn, Ashiok not going to help here.
Now, theoretically, Time Walk Ashiok into a Worm Coil Engine, if Ochoa brought that in, could get him right out of this.
Man.
Brainstorm, there it is. Now, this is where Brainstorm's really powerful.
So the fact that he took so long to cast this, I don't know what that makes me think. I wonder if he didn't cast it last turn, because that seems really risky to me.
I would have cast it last turn. Absolutely.
He has no life gain in his deck, right? So going to 1...
He has Worm Coil Engine.
Oh, Worm Coil Engine.
Similar
I still don't like going to 1 when you have Force of Will and fetch lands.
I don't either.
He must have just drawn it. I can't imagine that he...
Looks like
nothing.
David Ochoa wins. That was an exciting match.
Yeah, it's cool. It was a cool game. Kind of got to see what both decks do.
Yeah.
Although Gerard kind of did everything his deck does all at once.
Gerard crammed all of his spell playing into one of the 3 games. and Ochoa sort of spread out his game playing over the course of games 1 and 3. So
And
that
that was
worked out
just
better.
that game was just an example of you try to one for one shops, but that deck is very this version of the deck is much more threat dense.
Yeah,
Like it's not
you
sitting there
select you.
with sphere resistance in play. It has something that does damage to you.
It does. I mean, Ochoa.
Okay, so it sounds like we're going to take the stream down for a few minutes so we can get the hand cams back up and solve some of these tech issues. So we're going to go down for a few minutes. I think Rich and I are still going to be here.
Sure.
I think.
All
I'll be
right.
right back.